Dude, I was trying to send a text message and I felt like my parents trying to read a menu at a restaurant. Like I had to hold my phone as far away as my arm could go. What's good? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The Newest Olympian. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm the titular Newest Olympian. I'm a 33-year-old man who never read the Percy Jackson books as a kid, but I read them as an adult because I was on a quest to determine if society had been sleeping on the series. I said yes, and now I am on a quest to determine if society is sleeping on the ongoing second season of the Percy Jackson show. So I am covering the next episode in the series, covering episode 6, and doing so with a very special guest because I'm never on this journey alone. I'm joined by someone who you have seen and heard lovely content from, but also someone who's recently gone a glow up. It's not Robert from the damn meme page. It's Robert from the damn media page. Robert, how's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm excited. If people are wondering, wow, Mike, it sounds like you're in an empty, echoey hotel room down under. That's correct. That's exactly the situation that I am in, but nothing can stop me from watching and covering this show.
If you notice any discrepancies in his audio, it's because he's upside down.
Right. Yeah. If anything sounds weird, it's just because the audio file is upside down, given that I am, as they say, down under. But we, as mentioned, are going to be covering the 6th episode of the second season, which is a banger. It's really good. It's really, really fun. I liked it a lot. I've really enjoyed this season. I think it has been a delight. Where are we for guest questions for you? Returning guest stuff.
You've asked me Nectar and Ambrosia. You've asked me Cabin. You've asked me Fatal Flaw. I guess we're up to what's my Riptide?
Yeah. If you had an inanimate object that turned into something smaller, like a sword to pen Riptide, what would you have?
The way that I listen to your podcast, and I know this is a question you ask your guests, and I didn't prepare an answer really. If I had to, something small, just because of my day job, I work as a CNC machinist, so I work with a lot of measurements. So something small, like a paperclip that'll turn into my calipers that I use to measure my parts at work. So something like that.
Ooh, nice. I like it. Efficiency. Speaking of efficiency, let's get into talking about this episode. It's good. I took a lot of notes because it was so much fun. There's a lot of action, but there's a lot of cool stuff going on. So episode 6 opens and we see the last time on situation, which is important in this case. I like to look for these sorts of things in the last time on when it's not last time on, but earlier this season. And they did show us the fleece in the last time on. So it's like, the fleece episode. Because I was wondering, how are you going to do this? Is it going to be the fleece episode for 6? Is the fleece going to be 7? Like, it's obviously not going to be the last one. So it establishes right away, this is the one where they get the fleece, which of course had me very excited.
Absolutely.
The first actual scene of this episode, we hear some ringing bells and it's an underwater shot. And it took me a moment to realize, oh, right, it's going to be Tyson. And then it is Tyson. And then I was wondering, Tyson underwater? Is Poseidon going to save him? Is a Nereid going to talk to him? Are we going to get some sort of ocean Tyson-based thing? But then we do get something that I had predicted while I was watching episode 5. I didn't put it into the episode 5 episode because we had covered so much. There was so much to talk about in that episode. But I did write it down in my notes. After finishing episode 5, I just wrote out, Tyson is going to return to the crew on the island atop Rainbow, because we had the whole like Tyson Rainbow connection. Rainbow had not really shown up. It was in the end credits. We saw like Rainbow's fin in episode 4. I must have not talked about it in a clear enough way, because even though me and Jillian mentioned that you could see it like a dolphin spray in the episode, I still got a lot of comments where people were like, how did Mike miss it? So I guess I didn't talk clearly enough when I said you might be able to see it. Jillian was less convinced than but I was like, that's gotta be Rainbow. And we'll talk about the episode, so we'll see what happens.
It's like an opposite situation to Zebragate, where you were someone who was adamantly like, there's a zebra, and everyone was like, where? Yeah. It's now the reverse, where everyone's like, Mike, did you see Rainbow? Yes, I saw Rainbow.
I saw rainbow. I guess I was not clear enough, but I did see rainbow, or at least the hint of rainbow. And now we get an even more obvious hint of rainbow because Tyson has a little bracelet fall into his hands, and then there's a flash of light. But then it cuts to Percy in what is pretty obviously a dream. He's in a room in the big house, and it's raining outside. And I figured this has got to be a Chronos dream. And it's a creepy Chronos dream because there's a bunch of dead campers on the floor of the big house. Ugh.
Yeah. And then our Chronos dream suspicions get even more suspicious because the hooded figure with a lantern walks in, and we only know one hooded figure with a lantern.
Gotta be Chronos, right? Can't be anyone else. This has been the Chronos motif. We certainly won't be corrected about this in a mere matter of minutes. So Percy wakes up. It's storming outside. He unintentionally wakes up Annabeth just by causing a bit of commotion, lighting a little lantern with a match, and he wants to rush to the island, which Annabeth lets us know is against their plan. Their plan is based off of the Odyssey. Ever heard of it? And she explains that the plan is that they're going to wait until the morning. They're going to use the sheep of Polyphemus to mask their sound and their scent. They're going to go up the hill. They're going to steal the fleece. They're going to throw down either the fleece or the rope. I don't know. They're going to save Grover afterwards via the hole. Percy knows that this is the plan, but he's rattled from his dream and he shares it with Annabeth. And what's interesting is that he shares something that we, the viewer, did not see in the dream. We actually didn't see the ending of the dream. He says that he thought it was going to be Chronos, but it was a girl inside of this Chronos getup. And then the show shows us the continuation of the dream. How about that for showing, not telling, all the people who criticized season 1? And the show shows us that it was Thalia underneath the hood. And this makes sense because in the dream, when the Chronosy figure came in, they zapped Percy with lightning. So for it to be Thalia, that makes more sense. When he got zapped, I was like, that doesn't feel like a Chronos thing. Why would he get zapped? Like, maybe because Percy the Lightning Thief? This feels like a stretch. Now it's less of a stretch. And I think this is fun. This is not a book thing, right? This is a new thing.
He did have a dream about Thalia opening the sarcophagus in the book. That's like his second ever Thalia dream. The first one he had was in Lightning Thief, where he's like, I've never met this person before, but I know it's Thalia, and we're like hanging out in a detention or something like that. This is, I think, the first time Percy has seen Thalia ever.
Yeah. I mean, Percy himself would have not recognized it, so
no.
I guess
so that's
he just
why
has
he
to have
says
the
her
intuition.
instead of Thalia.
Right. He doesn't have confirmation, but maybe he has intuition that it is Thalia. Annabeth, of course, knows right away that this is Thalia, and she tries to hedge, saying demigod dreams are tricky, and Percy says that Sally always told him that dreams never lie. Yeah, you might not know exactly what's going on in them and what they're trying to say, but they're always telling the truth. Very interesting. It made me kind of think, what would the truth of this be? And I don't know. I think it could be more of like the fact that Thalia could be the weapon, or even a foreshadowing of the fact that Percy and Thalia are going to butt heads, or that they are both the potential pawns of Chronos. I don't think that this is necessarily saying that Thalia is evil. I think it's more of just there's the potential for it, which is true. Like, they both fit the bill of the prophecy. So
Percy himself isn't necessarily evil, but he also, it could be that he gets persuaded or something happens throughout the next couple of years that he ends up destroying Olympus.
Persuaded.
Oh my.
Gotta do it. So then we get a bit of a, I don't know what to call it. It feels kind of like a Polyphemus flashback. It's like Polyphemus lore building, where he is monologuing and they don't reveal exactly who he's monologuing to in the beginning, but it seems clear that it's going to be towards the only two people we know to be on the island. But he's monologuing, and the show is showing us kind of some scenes of him herding sheep and walking around his island. And his monologue is about how he loves living alone. It allows him to focus on what matters to him, protecting his treasures. And I gotta say, living alone is quite nice. Obviously, living with your partner, and now for me, your child, fantastic. But when you go from, or if you go from, or if/when you go from the roommate life to the living solo life, it's truly glorious. I don't know if you've ever had this upgrade, but it's a good feeling.
The closest, I guess, would be me moving out of my parents' folks into my first apartment, just living by myself. It's a change.
Look, it's a great feeling. You had roommates, and then you're gone with the roommates. For me, it was nice to, especially in the phases when I was making YouTube videos and Vines and stuff, it was so nice to be able to just film stuff whenever I wanted to. And living alone is when I really started ramping Potterless into gear. I think the first 3, 4, 5 episodes might have been recorded when I was still with a roommate. And then when I moved to Seattle and I was alone, I was like, oh, I can just I can just do this whenever. I don't have to ask my roommate, when is it okay? When are they out of the house? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, the freedom to content create on my schedule. Delightful. Delightful.
Beautiful. I need to say that this whole monologue that Polyphemus is giving, it's kind of giving Thanos. I'm not going to lie.
Ooh.
I had such a parallel to... especially, Thanos' big speech at the end of the Infinity War being like, I'm going to sit down to a grateful universe or however it goes. There was so many connections, and I can't necessarily say it's one-to-one, but I can also say they're two Disney properties. So a little mixing or a little influence might have happened. Who's to say?
Yeah, no, I get it. I think you kind of at least get the big bad isn't really concerned with anything except for their core belief and they're totally comfortable with riding solo. Yeah, I could see it. Continuing in this monologue, we've got Polyphemus saying that all outsiders are enemies or food, which I loved the little addition there. And then he has a very tongue-in-cheek reference where he says, if you don't trust big paws, nobody, then you live. And given that the Odyssey was already referenced in the episode, now we're getting the nobody call. It really felt like we were going to get some nobody stuff, and we definitely get some nobody stuff in this episode. Now, this is the part in the episode where we see that he is monologuing this to Clarice and Grover, and Clarice just being peak book Clarice. I enjoy the parts in the show where it's like, oh yeah, book Clarice is like this, where she goes, for someone who likes to be alone, you can't seem to shut up. And,
Zing.
It's good. It's good. And I'm glad that we are getting a new version of Clarice where we're seeing more and we've got more range and more emotion and seeing stuff that wasn't on the page because it's a Percy first person narration story. But also we get the classic grumpy school bully Clarice, which is just a treat. Just a treat. Polyphemus says that silence and loneliness aren't the same as being alone. And then he goes into creepy territory where he says that he will add their voices to his collection to keep the conversation stimulating. He does two kind of alas poor Yorkie things where he's talking to skulls of satyrs. One is Truff, who likes classic rock and anime, and one of Meritus, who seem to really like travel. And they are adding more of a sinister nature to Polyphemus, which I think is good. As I said in previous episodes, I feel like Polyphemus wasn't super scary as a big bad in the Sea of Monsters book. So to make him a little more creepy and chilling, and then in the previous episodes a little smarter, I think is fun. I like making him more villainous than originally he was. So Grover asks how Polyphemus thought to even use the fleece in the first place to lure satyrs into thinking it was Pan. And Polyphemus asks, who do you think brought the artifact here in the first place? And I wrote, Pan? What? And Grover basically asks, Pan? What? Why would he do that? And Polyphemus goes full Chiron and completely deflects and doesn't answer the question. Do you have a thought as to why Pan would do this? I'm drawing a complete blank.
I want to say that Polyphemus is lying, but I really feel like it's one of those weird situations where we haven't, if you want to count lying by omission, but I actually knew you were satyr the whole time. But Polyphemus is an example of one of those villains who I don't think we've seen tell a lie on screen.
Yeah.
That's like one of those subtle narrative devices you can use to be like, even if you don't want to trust him, even if he's the villain, he's not lied to you. So why would he lie about this?
Yeah. That's interesting stuff. I'm very intrigued to see. I'm assuming this will come back when we get into book 4 with the Pan stuff, season 4. So I don't know. I don't know why Pan would do this. It doesn't seem like it would be an intentional thing. Like it could be something where Pan had it and lost it along the way. Or maybe there's some mythological thing. Like this could be based on the real Pan myth and I just don't know about it. And maybe even Dr. Moya told me about it in the Sea of Monsters myth check episode from years ago. And I've forgotten because that conversation was 3 to 4 years ago. So maybe it's part of the myth and I'm just blanking here.
Maybe. But no, that's also a good call. Like it could also have been part of the myth. I'd have to look this up too.
Clarice then tries a fun tactic, saying that she thinks Polly's just scared, knowing that their reinforcements are coming for them. And it's funny because I don't think Clarice thinks Percy and Annabeth are coming since she's convinced they're dead. So little does she know, she was actually speaking the truth. She wasn't just talking trash and intimidating. Polyphemus goes, true, unlike satyrs, demigods are dangerous. And he says that heroes will cross oceans to save their friends, and that's why he has kept them alive. And after he says this, we have a cut of Annabeth and Percy arriving on the shore. This episode, with episodes 5 and 6, I'm very upset, not really, but I'm very upset, in parentheses, non-derogatorially, no, very upset, compliment, that I didn't get to see these before doing the press junket stuff, because there's so many questions I wanted to ask. And I wanted to ask, like, the filming of this outdoor stuff looked so fun. Like, I'm curious about the on-location shot. I'm curious about where it was. I'm assuming it's somewhere in Vancouver-ish, given that that's where they filmed the show. But I want to know, like, did they scout out hills? How did they pick which one it is? How much of it is real versus CGI? Because I'm sure they did the blending like they do for Lord of the Rings, where they have just like shots of real New Zealand, but then maybe they add a couple of mountains in the background. Or like Isengard is in a big open flat river kind of area, and then they just CGI a big tower in it. So I'm intrigued by how much of Polyphemus's island is actually there versus not there. Like, I'm assuming the tree atop the hill isn't really there, but maybe that hill's real. I don't know. I'm fascinated by it. And them running through the wilderness was just so fun. It's just a fun visual episode.
100%. That big panoramic shot of the island makes me realize that most of the island is barren looking. Just the area around the Golden Fleece looks like it's lush. Because I assume what they're trying to go for is it's a very condensed power. Maybe Polyphemus has it condensed to that one area. I'm afraid people are going to look at that and be like, why isn't the fleece super powerful like the book? Why isn't it making the whole island green?
Oh, does the fleece power the entire island in the book?
Yeah, if I recall correctly, it does make the entire island like green and lush. Like, that's one of the things I think they notice as they're going up to the island.
Well, yeah, I guess just a different interpretation, especially given how later in the episode we have Grover finding it and having to look a little bit. If it was super duper mega hyper powerful, it would maybe be too obvious. Like that, you can have that scene.
Yeah,
just a thought.
You know what? And I guess it doesn't matter much for when they inevitably put it on Thalia's tree, because if all that concentrated magic is just in that one area in Thalia's tree, and then Thalia's tree goes around protecting the entire border, it doesn't particularly matter. It's like one of those Wi-Fi extender things.
So Polyphemus continues that they are bait and the demigod voices will also join his collection. I guess the other reason, I don't know, maybe he wants a snack. Like, he wants to eat more demigods. He got one with Clarice and he's like, you know what? I love demigods. I'm going to go back to the store and I'm going to buy 2 more. He
needs nutmeg.
Or I guess maybe he doesn't even know specifically that it's Percy and Annabeth. So I guess his thought is, well, if I have the fleece that lures satyrs, I can have these 2 that lure demigods. And now I will get a diversity in palate. You know, I love eating satyrs, but I've had it every night this week. I got to get something different.
My thing is that earlier on the boat, Annabeth and Percy were talking about like, oh, we can't break the plan yet. Annabeth, part of her reasoning was that she's like, Polyphemus can smell us from miles away and can hear a pin drop. I'm like, when does that take place and like effect? Like, when does he know they're there? Because their whole plan is to like disguise themselves, as we're going to find out in a little bit, with sheep fleece and essentially go around Polyphemus pretending to be sheep. But I wonder when he knew they were there.
My guess would be once they got to shore. That would be my guess, because it does take them a little bit of time to get to the sheep. And I feel like he just has something in mind of, once I can smell or hear them, I'll get into action. And the time it takes me to get to the pen lines up with the time it takes them to get to the pen. And if they are a little early, I mean, it also does make sense of like why the sheep hides are out there. Because at first when they showed up and the hides are there, I was like, who would just leave this here? Why would he have these here? What's the point of this? Then when you learn it's all a trap, it's like, oh, because he wants them to do this. He wants them to think.
You're cooking, Mike. You're cooking. That's actually a great interpretation. Holy crap.
Look, I'm doing what I can. I mean, I was trying to think, because in the book, they just like grab underneath the sheep, right? And just like ride under them. So I was thinking, what's the point of adding the hides, aside from just easier to film than having our kids go underneath the sheep and less dangerous and less stunt people needing to be involved? But no, I think it's Polyphemus wants to give them that false hope, thinking, oh, look how smart we are. We've done this thing. But no. Lured into his trap. But let's continue and we can get there. So we then see the sheep, and we have Annabeth and Percy making their way towards the sheep, but then something glimmers in the sky. And this is while Annabeth and Percy are separated. Percy's kind of looking out over at the entrance of the cave, and Annabeth is walking, and the glimmering in the sky, I was thinking this got to be an Iris message, and it is, and it's from Luke. And didn't Luke also Iris message them in the beginning of episode 6 of season 1? Even more parallels.
Yeah. I have 2 questions. Clearly, when she answers the Iris message, he's like, "You're alive, I knew you'd be," implying that he tried calling multiple times.
Oh, interesting.
At least that's how I interpret it. So question 1, why do we think Cece's island blocks Iris messages, but not Polyphemus's island? And how many times do we think he tried calling?
I don't think he did, because it could just be this is the first time he tried and he did the Iris message. And the way it's clearly working in the show is you just say the name of the person. You don't have to know where they are. And it just calls them, kind of like how Annabeth just said Chiron and it was him with the party ponies. I feel like he probably just said Annabeth. And then maybe Allison in the room was saying to him, "Oh, she's probably dead." And then she picked up. So then he's saying, "Oh, I knew you'd be alive." That's what I think it is. I don't think it was, I tried a lot. I think it's, this is my first time, but if you were dead, it wouldn't show me anything. But because it did show me something, it confirms you're alive. I knew it. I was right all along. I'm Luke. Look at my pop collar.
And my boat shoes.
Oh, yeah. Not in frame, but certainly on feet. So he asks when Annabeth picks up the Iris message if this is Polyphemus's island, and Annabeth confirms. Luke says that he's not like other cyclopses. Now, when he said cyclopses in the previous episode, this was episode 4 with the Thalia flashback, I was like, okay, Luke hasn't gone to Camp Half-Blood yet. He hasn't learned that the plural is cyclopes. But now he said it's cyclopses. And I don't know if this is an octopus-octopi thing where like both are correct, but I know that the book does cyclopes. So I wonder why they've switched to cyclopses.
From my understanding, cyclopes is the correct way to say it, and cyclopses is just sort of how like language and like pop culture has said it for years. So I think just to keep in line with how pop culture has been doing it for years, they're just using cyclopses. But like if you listen to the audiobook or if you read the books or whatever, or if you hear Rick talking, he'll say cyclopes.
Interesting. This is one of those very tiny minutia questions that would be at the very bottom of my interview list, but in the if I have time, I'll throw this one out.
Yeah. I need to say that I don't like the word cyclopes too much. I just don't know what it is about the way saying the word cyclopes just hurts something in my brain. So when he said cyclopses, I was like, vindication.
To me, it has a little twinge of, I know this better than you, which feels like when someone properly, by the book standard, which has now been said it's not actually the thing, when you correctly use less or fewer, like by the old way. I think now it's one of those things where whatever dictionary or standard says you can just use them interchangeably, but I think it's supposed to be that less is for something that you can't quantify with a number and fewer is for something that you can. So you would say like, I have fewer M&Ms, but I have less hunger. Something like that. I think that's like how it actually breaks down. But now in modern society, it's like, just use them. No one cares. Don't be that person that will actually. And that's the big thing. Do not ever correct someone on this. It's never going to be a good look. Ever. But yes, cyclopes has a little bit of like, I know the term. And look, I still use the term. It makes me feel cool knowing Greek mythology stuff. I'm in this new era where like I actually know a decent amount of Greek mythology. I was doing a trivia game over the holidays with my in-laws, and there were a couple of Greek mythology questions, and I got them all right. And it's like, oh yeah. Now I'm at the point where I've read 8 and a little bit books plus played 2 Hades games to completion.
Like one Percy Jackson game.
That's true. Oh, no, not to completion. I need to get back on playing that DS game. I played a little bit. I got to get back on the mix. You know, it was kind of fun. It's not accurate, but it's kind of fun.
Those live streams are available if you subscribe to any tier of
Patreon. Go to the Patreon. It's so good. You also
get access to Discord. Woo. Anyway.
The Discord's so good. Anyway, Percy Jackson, thank you for shouting this out, Robert. Your check is coming in the mail. Which will be bigger if more people sign up. No, so Annabeth says that she doesn't need his advice and she definitely doesn't need his help. And she says that he just wants to know if they have the fleece yet. And he goes, right, I'm just wrong about everything, huh? Which is classic Luke's type, like the classic, like, oh, well, you know, they just, rather than someone engage in a genuine, fair conversation. They got to immediately throw the self-deprecating, like, oh, well, I'm just the worst, aren't I? To like force you into complimenting them or meeting them halfway or whatever. What a bad
Very
tactic.
toxic. Very
super
toxic.
super toxic. Annabeth says that he's not wrong about everything. Now we cut back to Percy overlooking the entrance. He runs over to Annabeth because he's clearly antsy that she's not here yet. Now we're back at Annabeth telling Luke that he was right about Thalia hating Zeus, but he was wrong to think that she would stand with Kronos. And Luke says that she would have wanted change, but Annabeth says not through war. She thinks that Kronos has already changed Luke, and when she says that, he kind of looks down dejectedly. Charlie's doing a phenomenal job at the dejected break eye contact looks when Annabeth has him pegged. And she says that he cannot see how much he has lost of himself. Really good stuff. I like how Annabeth conducted herself in this conversation.
I need to say that when I wrote my notes, I was very tired. So it's very funny to me to now read my notes and be like, oh yeah, you can't see how much of yourself you lost. I only wish ... And then Percy dunks.
He does. He absolutely does. He swipes and hangs the call up and asks, what are you doing? And Annabeth says that Luke was warning them about Polyphemus. And Percy says that Polyphemus is leaving his cave right now. And as they are making their way towards the cave entrance, he goes, Luke is working an angle. You know that, right? And I love how accurately they are depicting how much Percy hates Luke. It's very good. It's very good because it's so palpable in the books. So for them to leave it out of the show would have been a disservice, and they are not leaving that out. It's delightful. So we're back to Luke now. We see his side of it because Allison asks Luke what all that was about. They're in the Admiralty suite, and she thinks that he's wasting his time on Annabeth. His collar, very popped. Very, very popped of this very nice-looking quarter zip. And he says that he makes the calls, and this wasn't about her. He then grabs Backbiter and says, that was recon. I knew it. Annabeth knew it. We all knew it. But it's probably a little bit of he wanted to check in on Annabeth. I feel like a lot of the things, both book and show, when Luke does these things with Annabeth, it's always 75% his agenda, 25% I am checking in on Annabeth because deep down I do care about her, even if I don't care about her enough to stop being evil.
I love that you were like, oh, his collar is so popped. I'm like, I guess the more evil he gets, the more popped it gets. It's going to become like Mandrake from Dexter's Laboratory, that big popped collar cape combo.
Yeah, the collar's just going to grow. For all of the people who listen to Horse, my basketball podcast, it's going to get Brian Colangelo levels of collars, where he has very, very big collars. He didn't pop them, but the collar size will be that big. And if you're confused by that reference, I think that was the first episode of Horse, was we launched the podcast when it was the Brian Colangelo big collar scandal. That's how silly the NBA is. There was a scandal about someone using fake burner Twitter accounts, and there was discussion of whether or not Brian Colangelo's collars on his dress shirts were too big. Basketball. You should watch it. Anyway, Percy Jackson. So we see the sheep again, and now we see Annabeth and Percy crawling in the hides, which is just great. And again, I would have asked Walker and Aaliyah about this exclusively. Like, oh my gosh, I need to find a way to get them back on the show to ask them about the crawling in the hides. What did it feel like? What did it smell like? Did you get to take them home? Were they custom fitted to you? Like, did you have to go into the costume department and get sized for sheep hides? I'm assuming so. Oh, so many questions.
What I'd love to ask is, because Annabeth says, think woolly thoughts.
Yes,
what
she
were
does.
the woolly thoughts they were thinking to get into character?
Right. They're crawling. Polyphemus approaches. She tells Percy, think woolly thoughts. He goes, woolly what? And she goes, be a sheep. And then they just start bleeding. This is another question. Bleeding with a T, just in case people didn't hear that clearly. They're not bleeding. They're bleating. And I want to know, did they have a vocal coach that taught them how to bleat? Did they listen to the goats? Did they take notes? Did Andrew, their acting coach, consult with them about how to be as goat-like as possible? These are all the things I want to ask about. So then the show shows us what Polyphemus's vision looks like. It's pretty blurry. It looks like when you're at the eye doctor and they're showing you a certain prescription that is absolutely not yours, or something that happened to me recently because I got my eyes checked and I went to a place that did the pupil dilation. Never had this done before because the place I normally go to in New York does it in a way where you don't have to get it dilated. They use some sort of like high-tech whatever. But this place that I went to in Texas did not. They aren't kidding with the pupil dilation when they say like everything except for your close vision is pretty fine. But dude, I was trying to send a text message and I felt like my parents trying to read a menu at a restaurant. Like I had to hold my phone as far away as my arm could go. And of course, this eye exam was like, I think just after I had posted something to the TNO Instagram, like one of my reels, or like the show had dropped that day. There was something where I had to be responding to Instagram comments. And I distinctly remember replying to whatever comment you made on my post, and it taking me an embarrassingly long amount of time as I was eating a kolache in the kolache factory with my phone as far away from my face as humanly possible, trying to type like LOL, Robert, you get me. It was so bad. I felt so old. I mean, I am getting old, but I felt so old.
Age is just a number, you know. We're all young inside.
True. We're all young at heart. All of us reading and watching children's books and television shows.
You can't tell me you're feeling old when for 2 times in a row you and group of podcasters left the premiere like when they kicked you out.
We got kicked out a little more abrasively this time. There were flashlights being flickered on and off at us. It was a little more gently pushed out of the Met. This was a little more like, get the hell out of here. There was a little more gusto behind the requests to leave at the LA premiere.
Get out of here. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Very true. Very, very true. So Polyphemus's vision, kind of blurry. The sheep start hustling up the hill. So Percy and Annabeth try to scurry, but they aren't keeping pace. So they kind of veer off to the side and hide behind a rock. And then they get near the fleece and Polyphemus is kind of pacing around it. He leaves. Percy decides to go up and he looks down the hole and sees Clarice and Grover. And though it's muffled, you can tell that Clarice goes, Jackson, and Grover goes, Percy. Now Grover tries to warn Percy that it's a trap, and they do the very great TV show thing where it's from the perspective of them, so it seems like they're screaming, and then it goes from the perspective of Percy, and it's so far away and they're so muffled that it could easily be confused for them excitedly screaming for him or saying, please help us, stuff like that. So it makes sense. I like the show proving, and Percy can't tell what they're saying, but the others are trying. Like, it's good to confirm that so we don't think something is afoot or someone's being silly.
Because immediately after this, he like turns to Annabeth and holds up 2 fingers and she's like, what? I'm like, Percy, your charade game is trash. You need to come play Charade Flip Cup.
Yeah, dude. Yes, Robert, who was trained in the fires of the greatest game, not even drinking game, because we proved it's not just a drinking game because we played it just as a game, running Flip Cup charades, which I have described on my podcasts many a time. But yes, you learned by the end of it how to optimize your charades game. And Percy, he's too far away to just hold up a 2 finger as non-intensely as he did.
It was so casual. He's like, 2, and Annabeth, what?
Yeah, again, showing how far away he is. You can't see like how far. He's just too far. You can't see. So he has to run up to her, and he says that there's 2 of them down there. It's Clarice and Grover. So Clarice tries to break her and Grover free by standing and basically walking a flailing Grover into a mirror. A shard of the mirror does come off. She cuts the rope. And then we have a shot of Annabeth being worried now that they barely had enough time to save Grover. How are they going to get 2 people out? And Percy goes, we could always leave Clarice. I'm kidding, kind of. Let's go.
I have 2 questions. Obviously, there's riggings and wires and all that jazz for Dior and Orion to do that scene together. But quote unquote, in real life, in the reality of the show, how strong is Clarice that she can casually lift Grover up like that? And does breaking that mirror mean she and Grover are getting 7 years of bad luck?
I was worried about the bad luck angle for sure. I will say, I don't know how much Clarice can squat. I don't know how much Grover weighs, but especially for someone as athletic as Clarice, you can squat way more than your body weight. So I weigh about like 155 pounds, and I can squat, like when I was at my peak, I could squat like 325 pounds. Now I'm probably closer to like, I haven't maxed out in a while, but I would probably be closer to like 275 for a max. So like you can squat a lot more, and I would guess that Grover and Clarice are probably similar enough weights. So I don't think it's outlandish for Clarice to be able to do what she did, especially because Grover is tied so tightly to Clarice. It's a lot easier when that weight is like really tight up on you. Like think of putting on a heavy backpack as opposed to a heavy backpack when the straps are like all the way loose. So
right.
I think it's believable. I think it's believable. And I'm just so glad that you have given me this opportunity to put it in writing how much I can squat. Or I guess not in writing, but in talking. Anytime I can show my athletic feats on this podcast, I'm excited. That's why I ran so fast in that podcaster chariot race for Instagram. I was like, people are going to see this and they need to know. I'm a sports boy. So then Percy and Annabeth both go to the fleece and the hole. They tie a rope around the tree. They let the rope down. Annabeth says they got to go quickly as Percy rappels downward. Annabeth then hears and feels paint dripping from above, and it's gold paint, so it's a fake fleece. Annabeth tries whispering and warning, but Percy's already too far down. Then she sees Polyphemus running towards them, so she realizes, okay, I can just yell, and yells to Percy it's a trap. Of course, Clarice breaks free at that moment and confirms it is also a trap. Annabeth puts on her hat to disappear. Grover says that Percy should climb up, otherwise he'll be stuck with them. He agrees and starts ascending, but then Polyphemus goes, uh-oh, tricked ya, and then breaks the rope. So Percy falls down into Clarice's arms, and she catches him in a classic, like, damsel in distress sort of pose, and he goes, hi, and then she tosses him to the side. Now, this was really fun to see, because when me and the podcasters were on set, one of our visits was to the stunt department, and they showed us how they did this stunt. So Percy's stunt double is basically raised really, really high up from a rope, and then I forget the technical device, but I think it's the same thing that they showed in that behind the scenes season 1 thing, where it's like something that can go at the speed of falling, but you're not just like letting go of a rope. There's like a person behind a big steel thing that you can control, but you can set the speed to be what it would be like if someone's falling. So then they have it to where I think the guy falls slightly slower than what just straight gravity would be, and then the Clarice stunt double catches him and then tosses him. So it was really cool to see a scene that we saw so many times done just like in the stunt training room, recreated beat for beat, shot for shot on screen. Was like a really fun, like, oh yeah, what, like my memory and what I'm seeing watching the show blending was very fun.
Yeah. I need to say that seeing Polyphemus run up the hill like that, terrifying.
They're doing a good job of making him very intimidating. Like, he
100%.
is not someone you want to mess with. Terrifying. So then we have Grover and Percy hugging. And Grover goes, not dreaming, you're really here. And Percy goes, not a dream. And then they hug. The subtitles let us know that emotional instrumental music is playing. Polyphemus says that the only way out now is through him, just as he planned. And then Annabeth goes, hey, you, while she is invisible under the hat. And then she basically starts odysseying him. She is talking trash. He asks which of the gods sent her. She says, nobody sent me. He goes, nobody? And she goes, that's right, nobody. Do you remember him? And gives a very sassy face while she does. And every time they show her, it's this cool, like visual thing to show that she's invisible. I liked whatever effect they did to show that Annabeth is invisible. It had big when Frodo has the ring on energy.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of blurring the background, which is very effective. It's like blurring the background, but it's also this like wiggle effect they're putting in.
And there's a little bit of like when a light goes through a prism, like there's a little bit of like rainbowy-ness going around it too.
Yeah.
Which is really fun. I think it looked really clean. And what's funny is this goes on, and I was like, wow, are they really not going to give the context of the Odyssey and nobody? Are they expecting all of these children watching the show to have read the Odyssey before? But then she gets into a trash talk thing where she basically explains the whole context, saying, oh, it must have been embarrassing when Odysseus tricked you, blah, blah, blah. So she does eventually reveal it, which I think makes sense for the target audience of the show, assuming that not everyone has read the Odyssey. So he just starts angrily slashing around. And then Luke portals in with Backbiter. He sees what's happening and he runs up. And I think this is a good point for us to take our mid-roll break, the sea of sponsors, as we talk about fun updates with the podcast. Maybe I'll be talking about the Australia/New Zealand tour that I'm currently on. Or new other things with the podcast, like that cool Patreon we talked about before. Whoa, stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Sea of Sponsors Perth edition. I'm coming to you from my hotel in undisclosed location, Perth. I am fresh off the airplane, and I say fresh because I was actually planning to do this mid-roll break on the airplane. I actually recorded the whole thing from my seat on my phone, pretending that I was asleep on my tray table, and then I was editing it and everything, and then I got a little tired, and I was like, oh, when I was pretending to sleep, I was feeling like I could actually go to sleep. Maybe I'll just take a little bit of a nap. And then I slept 4+ hours until the plane landed. So now I've decided, well, I might as well just make a better sounding mid-roll break. I'll put up that airplane seat one on Patreon. It's fun. There's a part where I order a chicken sandwich halfway through after failing to get the top 2 things I wanted on the food menu list. Not going to throw any airlines under the bus, Virgin Australia, but let's continue onward and let's talk about updates with the podcast. I got stuff about the Australia tour. I got stuff about the New Zealand tour. I got stuff about not those things. Let's get into all of it. But the most time pressing is about the New Zealand tour because the Christchurch show that was penciled in for January 29th has now been cemented in. It's there in pen, in Sharpie, in paint, whatever it is. You can get tickets right now at newestolympian.com/live. That is going to be at 8 p.m. on January 29th at a venue called A Rolling Stone. Super stoked to be performing there. So come on through and get your tickets. I am trying to get the Auckland one secured. I haven't heard back from the venue yet. I think they're still on holiday break. So hopefully I will hear back soon and I can get that locked. And then we'll have all of the New Zealand stuff secured. But as far as the other Australia shows, if you're listening to this like right after it comes out, come to the Perth show immediately. It is a matinee. I'm uploading this technically very early morning, Saturday, January 10th. So get your butt to the show. The other Australia shows I've got going on are Melbourne on the 17th, almost sold out. So if you want to get your tickets, get your tickets. And then Brisbane on the 24th. So you can get those tickets at newestolympian.com/live. That's also where you can get tickets to the Wellington, New Zealand show, which is February 1st, another matinee. And then definitely that Christchurch show. And then hopefully the Auckland show as well. I also will be announcing new United States tour dates starting for March of next year. That announcement should come in our next full episodes mid-roll break, so stay tuned there if you are sick of me talking about shows that are basically the antipode of the United States. Come on through to some stuff that we've got going on in the US, so stay tuned for the next mid-roll break. Now, non-live show things, this episode was a little delayed due to some travel hiccups, but hopefully that's all in the past and we're all secure and I should be able to get back on the schedule that I would like to be, which is bonus episodes on Mondays and full episode breakdowns on Wednesdays. I'm hoping to keep that schedule going for episodes 7 and 8. Thank you all for your patience. I really appreciate it. Just a lot going on with travel and tour and the show and doing extra interview stuff and having a baby and all of that. So I appreciate everyone understanding my situation and hopefully enjoying the content that I am getting out, even if it's a little bit delayed here and there. I'm also hoping to get up more Patreon stuff in addition to the thing I recorded in my seat pretending that I was asleep. But speaking of the Patreon, there are folks who've joined the Patreon recently. I want to give a shout out to the folks who've joined the Patreon most recently. So shout out to our newest Ultra God tier patron, Lee Hartley. Welcome, Lee. I will be thanking you in the credits of every single episode, as well as the return of Persasabeth back in our ranks of Ultra God tier patrons. Thank you both so much. Super stoked for you to join our ranks. And shout out to our newest God tier patron, Catherine Morrissey. And shout out to our newest Demigod tier patrons, Tech, Morgan Potter, and Emily Accenty. Thank you all so much for your support. May Hestia bless you that if you are in the middle of an Australian heat wave, you and your family and your baby and the sometimes small portable air conditioning units in the places that you're staying can just really make it through. Hestia, help us, please. One fun fact about these patrons, Catherine's Patreon membership was a gift. And that's just a reminder to you all that you can gift people Patreon memberships. It's a great gift to give. You can pick whatever tier, you can pick durations and all that kind of stuff. Patreon has recently made it more easy to do so. Just head on over to the DNO Patreon. Now, if you're all caught up on the New Olympian and you're looking for a new podcast to fill your ears in between episodes, I've got just the thing for you. I made a limited series podcast with my buddy Eric Hamilton Schneider called The Last and the Curious, where we went through every single installment of the Fast and Furious film franchise. That does include Hobbs and Shaw, which was awful. And it also does include the little short film prequel movie, Los Bandoleros, which was delightful. We had a setup where we would watch one of these movies and then immediately get on microphones to talk about them. We did the first 4 in person and the rest remote. It was an absolute blast. We had so much fun putting it together. You can get all the episodes right now if you go to the Patreon shop, the TNO Patreon shop, or you can also access it directly by thelastandthecurio.us. So that spells out The Last and the Curious, but between the O and the U, put a dot so that it's .us, and you get all 13 episodes for just $5. There's no ads, there's no waiting. You just get a whole bunch of content for lower than the price of a coffee, I think. I don't know. My brain's broke on Australia. Prices are a little different, and the coffee's better. I don't drink coffee, but Kelly's having a good time. I'm just happy for her. Now, unless you're listening on Patreon, where you get access to ad-free episodes, you're going to hear words from a few sponsors who make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of those ads will be read by me, and others of them won't be. The ones that aren't read by me are inserted locally. So if you live in Monaco, don't be surprised if you hear an ad in French. But once those ads are complete, we'll get back into this episode of The Newest Olympian. And we're back, and we're here to talk about the rest of this episode. So Grover starts looking for the fleece, knowing that Polyphemus wouldn't trust leaving it anywhere else except for in his cave on the island. So he starts sniffing, which I think is smart. We then cut back to Luke climbing up the hill and Polyphemus slashing all the way down. Like he's reached the pen at this point, just going like, rah, rah, rah. So showing that he does have a bit of a flaw. You know, his quest for vengeance on nobody or for anyone that has wronged him is kind of his fatal flaw that can outdo the additional smarts and creepiness that they've given him. Luke is at the tree. He grabs the fleece without knowing, and he does look pretty happy, but then he can tell something's wrong. He looks at his fingers. The gold is all over his hands. Grover, then in the cave, finds the actual golden fleece hidden in a little cavern, and it is very gold. And again, I have seen the golden fleece in the prop room, and what's funny is in the prop room, it was just like there. Like it was just like either on a table or on the floor. It was just like there. There's no pomp and circumstance. It's just like
it was
there was
just
a gold
there,
place.
and you left it. You didn't bring it to Thalia's tree. Mike, you had one job.
What's funny is it's something I posted to Instagram recently for the episode 4 thing. It was me and Clarice. With me, I had Riptide and Clarice had her spear. We were kind of pointing them at each other. And the golden fleece is just like at my feet. And someone did comment that they were just like, lol to the casual golden fleece at your feet. Like, yeah, dude, it was just like a carpet. It's just there. But it is very gold. And it's cool to see it. Like they added like a little bit of CGI shine to it. But the actual like prop itself is very shiny. Very, very shiny.
Ooh, very cool.
Polyphemus can sense that the golden fleece has been taken, which I think is interesting. I'm sure it has something to do with being attuned with the magic. I don't know. Maybe he knows what it feels like when he moves it. So if someone else grabbed it, one of those things where it's like, we don't have to worry about this too much. But I did find it a little interesting of how does he know? How would he know? What changed?
Maybe that does give a little weight earlier to it. I was saying that perhaps Polyphemus like condensed the magic to just that tree and the little area around the tree. So maybe he's more connected with it than I thought. And maybe the passing comment of like, who do you think gave it to me has more weight that we definitely need to explore more.
Very excited. It's very exciting. I'm so excited for the pan stuff. Annabeth knows that the coast is clear, so she takes off the hat, but oh no, Luke sees her, so he's going into action. Grover brings the fleece to the other two, and a jaunty string melody begins to play. For a second, I was worried that was going to be the end of the episode when it cut to black, but it thankfully was not. So we have Percy, Grover, and Clarice trying to pry open the boulder that closes the entrance to the cave, but it's not working. Polyphemus enters. Our trio here draws weapons. Annabeth then stabs him with her dagger after he says, "The fleece is mine." And then he just kind of backhands her and she goes flying, which is true to form of how he sends people absolutely flying in the book. So his strength is really carrying over. She hits the ground pretty hard. She drops the dagger and then she appears to be bleeding from her head. Polyphemus then closes the door so that our three can't get out. He walks over to her and then we see that her head is super duper bleeding. Like it's looking super rough bleeding.
Yeah, you don't want to bleed from the head. That's
bad. That's bad. We don't need to have Dr. Stephen Parr on here to let you all know. You don't want to bleed from your head. Blood should stay in your head. Your head blood should stay in your head. Your brain stuff, keep it there. So then we hear a voice say, "Get away from her." And it's Tyson. Oh, Tyson. So Tyson comes in and Percy goes, "Tyson." And he goes, "Hey, Percy." And then Polyphemus says, "Step aside, little brother. These mortals belong to me." And Tyson says, "No, they don't. And you're not my brother. My brother is inside this cave." Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
I was thrown off by the sizing we see. And I think it's just because when you have the imagination of like a 12-year-old or whatever reading Sea of Monsters the first time, you're imagining big, giant. You're imagining Polyphemus is huge, like 40, 50 feet tall. I don't have the book on me right now, so I can't pull up how tall Percy thinks he is in the book, but it's so weird for me to see that Tyson is roughly half the size of Polyphemus.
I don't know why, but I felt like Polyphemus wasn't that tall. I would have guessed he was like 15 to 20 feet. Let me see if I can pull up my very legal PDF really quick. He must have been at least 15 feet tall, but the most startling thing was his enormous milky eye, scarred and webbed with cataracts. So yeah, I was right, between 15 to 20 feet, at least 15 feet tall.
Okay, so it's just over imaginative teenage boy brain still like pushing through in my late 20s.
I think like the Hyperboreans are that tall, but not
Maybe that's what I'm thinking
Yeah.
of. Yeah. Okay, so then that makes more sense. So if Polyphemus was like 15-ish feet and Tyson's roughly half that height, like 8 foot tall Tyson, I can believe that.
Yeah. I feel like probably just to make things simpler, like Daniel Deemer is like 6 something. Like he's probably in the 6'4", 6'5" height. So they're probably just like, nah, close enough for, kind of giant.
It was so wild seeing photos from like the premiere and stuff of people with Daniel, and Daniel towers over everyone. I think Daniel even towered over you, even though you're like a few inches shorter, I think, right?
He's tall. Yeah, I'm 6 feet tall. Let me pull up the me and Daniel photo. But yeah, someone did comment on one of the photos. They were like, haha, to Mike being taller than everyone except for Daniel. It's like, yeah, all of the children and teenagers, and then the one dude in his 20s, like, that is to be expected, is it not? The real funny thing is when I stand next to Liam Crowley, who's also like 6'5", and then it's just like, well, he's not like, he's just a news-ish reportery type too. Wait a second.
Liam and Daniel basketball game when?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Daniel, let's see. If I'm 6 feet, yeah, he's probably like 6'3", but he's also leaning over a little bit in that photo. So he could, yeah. So he's like 6'3", 6'4". Yeah, he can hoop. He could probably hoop.
He can hoop.
He could hoop, which is all that really matters. Please, season 3, let there be basketball, please. So then there's a point where Polyphemus and Tyson are talking to each other in ancient Greek. Polyphemus talks to him in ancient Greek, basically saying that demigods are the real monsters. And Tyson responds saying that Percy is nothing like Polyphemus. Percy is a hero. And then there's a fight scene. And I don't know what sparked this. I just wrote, I got to interview Daniel again. I'm guessing just how cool the fight was. But then there's a point when he's about to get punched by Polyphemus. But Tyson goes, please, I don't want to hurt you. And he goes, you hurt me. And then Tyson body slams him and tackles him off a cliff. So, yeah, looks like Tyson was holding back in this fight. I do remember this being kind of a thing in the book that narrator Percy was like, I didn't know Tyson had this much game. Like, I feel like Tyson like really wailed. Like, obviously he'd seen him do the Colchis Bulls in the books, but I feel like I remember narrator Percy being like, okay, Tyson, in the ending of the Sea of Monsters.
I understand that CGI and fight choreo and different kind of stuff. Like, there's a whole bunch of different factors as to why we couldn't have like a completely fly on the wall fight scene as opposed to where we get like a half fly on the wall fight scene, half through the crack in the boulder fight scene. I understand. But I yearn for more fight scenes that I can actually see all of the detail of.
Yeah, I think this one's probably tricky because you've got... I know the guy who's playing Polyphemus is big, but obviously they're putting him in makeup and prosthetics and CGI. Like, you can't just have him straight up fighting. I hope that as the show goes on, we can get it proper. Because even the Percy Ares fight was a little disappointing in season 1. It was like my favorite scene in the first book for sure, and one of my favorites in the whole series. But I don't know. I'm really hopeful for the Atlas Artemis fight in season 3, given that Artemis is being played by Daphne Keane, who was X-23. Like, she knows how to fight. And I am unfamiliar with the guy who plays Atlas, but everyone who does know him was like super stoked about the casting of him. So I would imagine that they can like really get something going. I also would love to see just like a good old fight scene. And I feel like we're going to get that, if not this season, future ones with Percy versus Luke. Like, obviously Charlie and Walker know what they're doing. We've seen both of them show glimpses of that throughout the show so far. So I feel like we can get some good stuff. Whatever the Percy Antaeus fight is like in season 4 could be really fun. There's cool opportunities. Percy versus Thalia in the beginning of season 3, like, it could be some fun stuff. I'm hopeful. We now have some somber music because they think Tyson is gone again. And now they're trying to save Annabeth with the fleece. But then Luke shows up, and I just wrote my notes, GTFO, with a lot of exclamation points. And Percy's freaking out, screaming, don't touch her, get away from her, Luke, you better not hurt her. Then I wrote in my notes, oh no, Percy's going to give the fleece through the hole. And Luke chokes back tears, saying that she's dying. And Percy runs to get it. And I was like, oh my God, they're really doing this. And then Clarice grabs it, and she does not want to give it to Luke. And Percy says to Luke that he should portal into the cave. Luke says he can't. He says only one person can go through, and I already used it. That felt like BS, because how are you going to leave? I guess he doesn't use it to leave the island, but to me that felt a little bit like him just trying to like yada yada, this is how the magic works, and you can't check me on it as a sneaky way of, I do want to save Annabeth, but I would love to save Annabeth in a way that also gives me the Golden Fleece.
Yeah. I'm now thinking, how did Luke know to get to Polyphemus' island? Like, he knows Annabeth is there. How does he tell his sword, hey, when you make the portal, take me to Polyphemus' island?
Yeah.
And could he have done that the whole time?
I don't know. Maybe it's like a Nightcrawler thing where you have to have seen where you're going kind of thing. Nightcrawler from X-Men. I don't know. It is a thing because I know a lot of people thought this wasn't real, but like in the book, he does portal away with the sword.
Yeah.
So Backbiter portals is a official canon book thing, but we never get into the magic of it. They never explain how it works.
In that case, I'm happy. I'm happy that we get to see the portal happen more than once. It only happened once in the books. And we get a little bit of, maybe not lore, but at least like a lot of questions we can ask and we can fill in the blanks ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, look, this would have been on my Uncle Rick list of, okay, we saw more than one portal. What's the portal science? Like, gosh, so many questions. Let me ask them more. Give me the cast again.
If you want Mike and the other podcasters to ask more questions, you got to tell Disney you want that.
Everyone yell at Disney. So Luke says he can't. Then Percy asks for it from Clarice again, but this time he has like a dazed look on his eyes, like almost like he's an autopilot with rage. Clarice doesn't want to sacrifice the quest, and she says that Annabeth would understand because this is bigger than any of us. And Grover says, you said you'd never let another warrior fall on the battlefield if you could prevent it. Percy then just goes into rage mode and just runs up and steals it from Clarice. He is in I'd burn it all down for you, Annabeth mode. So he then gives it to Luke through the hole, and Luke puts it on Annabeth. Then ethereal instrumental music begins to play, according to the captions. Luke then grabs and pockets the dagger, which felt very ominous and, you know, obviously very historical given the dagger's history and the cursed blade nature of it all. He then picks up Annabeth with the fleece on her and he walks off. So this is wild because now Percy has played an active role in bringing back Kronos. But I have forgotten, and I'm glad you're the guest here because I feel like you'll know what goes down exactly with the fleece and the end of book 2. And there's the whole thing of like they leave it behind, but then Clarice gets on an airplane. How does book 2 end again?
Everyone's in the island. Tyson goes through the sheep because the sheep are man-eating. So he goes through, gets the fleece. They fight Polyphemus. They leave. They're leaving, and Clarice is taunting Polyphemus, being like, woo, we beat you. And then Polyphemus successfully destroys their boat. The hippocampi come, save them, bring them to Florida. And then on a beach in Florida, Clarice tells her whole prophecy, and Percy's like, oh, wait, yeah, you needed our help to do this, but you got to go home alone. Tyson is like, I have money because Rainbow wouldn't eat it. They give all the money to Clarice. She goes on a flight, and then they fight Luke. So the fleece like goes on its merry way with Clarice by the end of the book.
Gotcha. So this is completely new.
Yeah. Where Luke did not get his hands on the fleece at all in the book.
Right. And then he like captures them and then they're on the Princess Andromeda, right?
Yes.
Then I wonder what's going to happen. Then how does Luke bring back Kronos again in season 3? Forgive me, I've only read these books once each.
Kronos is like slowly coming back with
the sarcophagus. It was just going to like speed up the process.
It was just going to speed up the process. He was always going to come back. It was slowly building up every time a new demigod or a new person joins Kronos' army.
Gotcha.
The fleece would have just sped it up.
Gotcha. All right. So, okay. So that doesn't mean that Percy is 100% playing a role in the bringing back of Kronos. This is just setting up a different confrontation of sorts. Okay. Cool. Thank you for the clarification there. So then Clarice says to Percy, do you realize what you've just done? You killed us. We get the little cut to black thing. And then when it comes back, she is still going. You killed Camp. You probably killed Annabeth too. Great job, hero. Grover tells her to back off because he had to. Then Tyson opens the entrance to the cave. He's an absolute legend. He's wet because he tackled him into the ocean. And I scream, go get Luke. I wondered also, was he strong from the ocean? Was the water adding to his strength to open up the cave? So Grover asks Tyson what happened to Polyphemus after their brief little introduction where it's like, oh, you know, I'm Tyson. Oh, yeah, I know. And Tyson says that Polyphemus won't bother anyone again, which feels like code for I either killed or seriously injured this dude, which kind of like out of Tyson because he doesn't look proud of it. He doesn't look happy that he's done this to him. So he doesn't want to use it. Like he said, I don't want to hurt you. Tyson apologizes to Percy for going after him instead of chasing after Annabeth and Luke. Percy gives him a big hug and through tears says that he thought he would never see Tyson again. But Tyson was always confident that he was going to see Percy again. So Clarice asks Tyson which way Luke went. He points. Percy then grabs the hat, which I love this a lot. He has a bit of an angry look afterwards and then runs off. And then the four of them stop and see that Luke stole their ship. That jerk. Like, to make things even worse, he stole their boat? Come on, man.
Terrible. How on earth are they going to catch up to him now?
How are they going to do it? And here it is, as I had predicted. The four of them stop and they're looking at this and they're wondering, Clarice asking very angrily, what now? Percy says, we get them back. Clarice asks, how are they going to get off the island? Tyson then smiles and fiddles with the bracelet. And then Rainbow shows up and he says, guys, meet Rainbow and his four friends. And Grover is excited to see four hippocampi. The music is swelling. And then Percy, with a more confident look, says, we get them back. And that's the end of the episode. What'd you think about episode 6? I thought this was glorious. So fantastic.
I thought it was pretty good. I would have liked it to be a little longer, but that's just a thing that I have with the show in general. I understand there's a whole bunch of reasons why it can't be as long. There's a bunch of rules and regulations, but also, hey, if you're someone like me who wants longer episodes or more episodes, you could probably tell like Hulu and Disney, you can like send feedback and recommendations. You can be like, hi, I love Percy Jackson. I would love there to be longer episodes or more episodes.
Right. I mean, obviously there's lots of factors, but I agree. Either longer or more, especially if we're feeling this way about season 2, where book 2 was like, like it's not everyone's favorite. Like I feel like it's consensus last place, but like, it has a 93 out of 100. So it's like high scoring last place. If there's this much from Sea of Monsters that we're like, I wish I could have seen that, like it's going to get real bad if season 3, 4, and 5 are 8 episodes between like 30 and 40 minutes.
Season 2, I can kind of excuse because Sea of Monsters is the shortest book and Lightning Thief is, introductory, whatever. But like there are a lot of fights and themes and ideas and a lot of things that need to be built on and talked about in seasons 3, 4, and 5 that I think would really benefit for at least 40 to 50 minute episodes, like true 40 to 50.
Yeah. That would be nice. Yeah, not Disney Plus 40 to 50 where it's 12 minutes of credits. Because to their credit, they credit all of the different voice actors from different countries for the international stuff, which I love. I think
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. The other thing I will say to close out this episode is that it was so fun for me to watch this because when we were on set, one of the things we did was we went to the department where they do all of the different like set design and stuff. And part of that is they had these images where artists on the team like draw out sketches of like what they think all the different shots are going to look like. And this is used in a lot of different things, like from getting props and stuff to some of the writing stuff. This was one of the few places where like, you guys can't take photos, pictures, anything in this room because the entire room's wallpaper is just the season. Like it's just all the printouts of like what every shot is going to look like. So we, of course, were looking at all of this and we could see Luke putting the golden fleece on a passed out Annabeth and all of us were like, what the is this? Like we were all freaking out, really just trying to figure out so much like what like we were freaking out because everything else like, oh yeah, that's this and oh that's the sirens, okay, and we saw this and we're like, what is going on, and like so we were absolutely freaking out. So it was cool to see what they were cooking in this episode and I'm so stoked for 7 and 8. Really looking forward to it. So we'll just have to see what's ahead. But Robert, thank you so much for joining. This was a delight. If people want to find you doing stuff, where can they find you doing stuff?
Thanks as always, Mike. If people want to find me doing Percy Jackson stuff, that is TheDamMediaPage. I full 180'd. I'm like, meme pages don't go to premieres. Season 3 premiere is my 2026 goal. I'm going.
Let's make it happen.
I'm going. So I'm making media. I'm going to try and get interviews. I'm going to do all that jazz. But if you want to tune in, that is youtube.com/TheDamMediaPage, DAM. I also have Instagram, TikTok, Bluesky, Threads. But that's not the only places you can find me. If you like Steven Universe, and a few of you do, people who listen to TNO, you can find me talking about that on my podcast, The Bits. And then my other bread and butter these days, I got a lot of fans from TNO who like this show, but if you like the HBO Max medical drama, The Pit, and you're listening to this episode as it comes out, tomorrow is the season 2 premiere, and my podcast, The Pit Crew, is covering each episode as they come out. So tune into that wherever you get podcasts.
Yeah, all you pit heads, go over there. I'll be in the back watching anything else because I'm so squeamish. Robert, thank you so much for joining. Listeners, thank you for listening. And until next time, when we see how the rainbow ride of wonderfulness goes, until then, I'll see you later. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamanes and Brandon Krugel, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you can't get enough of the show, you can go to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon for bonus episodes, bonus content, ad-free episodes, a whole bunch of fun stuff. If you want to interact with the community around the show, you can check out the Discord, which is available to all patrons, or we're on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Instagram, Bluesky, and Twitter, and we've got a subreddit, reddit.com/r/thenewestolympian. You can also show your love for TNO by getting TNO merch at thenewestolympian.com/merch. Of course, I want to give a huge shout out to our producer level patrons, Kelsey Gillespie, Vicky Garcia, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Polly Burge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Josh Sayer, Sam Ruby, Mrs. O'Leary, Milo Kim, Sandkopf, Rayla Matthews, Sky Mallory, Mick Walters, Grace, Ginger Spursboy, Bradimus Prime, Skylar Sisters, Scott Sheldon, Ann M. Thayer Cohen, Bella, Percy Jackson Son, Kit Kat Crumbs, Jim Jam Koopy, Andrea, not Andrea, Jordan Ray, Nico's Black, Vespa, Zayden Wintergate, Terry Rothfuzz, Certified Ghost King's emotional support friend, Lee Hartley, and Persasabeth. If you want to support the show in a non-monetary way, word of mouth is essential for podcast growth. You can tell a friend directly, say, hey, there's this Percy Jackson podcast I think you would like, check it out. You could leave a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you're using, or you could just talk about the show on social media. All these things really do help. I really appreciate anyone who has done so in the past, and I appreciate anyone who will do so in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode, and hope you tuned into our next full episode, where we break down episode 7 of the second season of the show with Liam Crowley. But until then, I'll see you later. Hey, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. So in the mid-roll break, regular Mike, editing Mike, not ASMR Mike, whoever that guy is, he mentioned the original version of the mid-roll break where there was the ordering of a chicken wrap in between. I'm going to put a clip of that as the ASMR Mike segment, and then if you want to hear the full ordeal, the whole thing, go to the Patreon.
Are you all doing the hot food service as well?
The what, sorry?
Are you doing the hot food service as well?
Yeah, what would you like?
Can I do I think it was in the menu, the butter chicken? It's on hot food.
Yeah, I don't have that one,
Okay.
I'm so sorry, but we do have the pies and thinking toasties if you were interested in any
Okay.
of that.
Do you have do you have like the sandwiches and wraps then?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Oh, do you have the pasta?
No, sorry,
Okay,
we
all
don't
good.
sell that anymore on the
all right.
menu. We just did
All
it
good, all
just
good.
those two, no, but
Okay.
everything else.
Everything else here. Yeah, can I do the